Many are telling me that Georgia is now the Hollywood of the South. But if the state continues cranking out movies at this rate, Hollywood may eventually become the Georgia of the West. Brunswick locals can attest to that. They're still cleaning up from the estimated $5 million plus that the new Ben Affleck movie just dumped into the local economy. And there's no end in sight.
Georgia.
It's been an exciting 5 years.
Georgia.
We passed a great tax incentive in 2008.
The whole day through.
Tons of production is coming in here. We're number 3 in the United States.
Just an old sweet song keeps Georgia
Do you think Georgia's stealing Hollywood away?
on my mind.
I think Georgia has stolen Hollywood away.
And Georgia is on the mind of Hollywood as much as any state in the Union. For instance, look at downtown Brunswick, where months of construction turned into this, a historic cityscape to film this man's latest movie. Carol Ann Wages snapped these pics of the Hollywood A-lister who spent last week filming the period piece in the Golden Isles.
It's been very entertaining.
Susan Bates runs a restaurant on Main Street.
The last 3 days was like Hollywood coming to Brunswick, Georgia.
I bumped into her revamping her seating after learning lessons from having a packed business every day while Affleck was in town.
He was here first thing Monday morning just looking at the set, and I went outside and just shook his hand and told him who I was and that this was my place and that I really appreciated him bringing the movie to Brunswick.
And if you ask Georgia locals, they'll tell you that Brunswick
Well, I think it's great that the Georgia film industry is growing.
is just the tip of the iceberg.
I think it's great. I'm excited that Georgia is getting a lot of the film industry.
Just look at the suburbs of Atlanta.
Walking Dead. Oh, yeah. They filmed, we live in Lawrenceville. They were filming Sleepy Hollow up the street from us, so I think it's great.
Or any small town around the Peach State. And if I understand, you're the 4th largest in North America, or 5th, or where's the ranking for Georgia right now?
3rd.
And you start to understand
So we had the last 3 Hunger Games.
the major shift
We had Fast and Furious 5 and then Fast and Furious 7.
in the entertainment industry.
We had Marvel's Ant-Man. We just had Marvel's Captain America 3, and now they're setting up for Guardians of the Galaxy.
Georgia's movie industry has exploded as much as anything in the latest Michael Bay film.
In 2007, we were at $244 million worth of economic impact. By this year, FY15, we were at $6 billion.
That's like 25 times almost.
Yeah, it's
that's
2,000%.
enormous. Lee Thomas is at the center of this.
You know, we're kind of a victim of our own success.
She's deputy commissioner of the state's film office, who has been doing everything she can to help Georgia's workforce keep up with Hollywood's demands on the Peach State.
But because we've gotten so busy, I mean, right now there's 43 projects going on in the state, and we don't have 43 crews.
Georgia has been luring Hollywood here on multiple fronts. First, there's a 30% tax credit, plus politicians from county commissioners in Glynn County to the governor himself are on board with making Georgia as desirable as possible to producers. One of the things that endears Georgia to filmmakers is all the different locations to shoot, like huge cityscapes in downtown Atlanta. The state also has mountains and small towns pretty much everywhere to film in. In fact, Brunswick gets a lot of movies that need coastal scenes. Brunswick is one of many towns in Georgia that is considered camera ready. Ben Affleck's movie and others have been paying dividends in Brunswick for more than a decade.
It's been really exciting for the businesses and the residents of Brunswick, as well as other areas that they're filming. So it creates a lot of excitement, a lot of buzz. And
The estimate I hear on the street is $5 million paid to all the vendors who helped build these sets. Scott McQuaid is with the Golden Isles Visitors and Convention Bureau.
you know, we don't try to hide the fact that we do have films coming into the area.
And a lot of those supplies
It can mean, you know, hundreds of thousands, if not millions, for the community as far as economic impact.
Now here's what should be a wake-up call for Florida. Because you know what they built here? And are now tearing down? Tampa's Ybor City. They did not film in Tampa because Florida is not as inviting to Hollywood as Georgia is.
Just an old sweet song.
What can Florida learn from Georgia?
Well, I mean, I do think it's a combination of a lot of elements. It's not one thing. We've seen certain markets have put stuff in place, and if they don't have a crew base and if they don't have infrastructure, it makes it very hard to attract projects.
Keeps Georgia on my mind.
And from what I understand, Hollywood is generous and gives back to the communities they shoot in. For instance, 2 buildings were built in downtown Brunswick for Ben Affleck's movie. Those buildings now need to be torn down, and I'm told the supplies from it are being donated locally to Habitat for Humanity. Scott Johnson, Channel 4, the local station. Crews have spent months building sets for Ben Affleck's new movie. He's one of many stars filming in Georgia. The problem is they need thousands of trained workers, and there are not enough yet.
Georgia is the Hollywood of the South.
Breakneck speed.
There's kind of a cool theme here for me shooting a family film in Atlanta.
May just about describe
I got people behind the camera right now as we speak who have abandoned Los Angeles to work here.
how quickly Georgia's film industry has grown.
We wouldn't have been able to film this movie anywhere else but in Georgia because we're doing a movie that spans over many states.
Tons of production is coming in here.
Revenue in the state's up 2,000% in 5 years. Seems like it might be great, but one problem.
The governor came up several years ago and talked about the fact that we needed to address the shortage of highly trained technicians in the state of Georgia.
Scott Vota is executive director at the new Georgia Film Academy.
And I moved back and semi-retired from the industry, and dang if the whole industry followed me back in the last 5 years.
They're in the process of expanding what was a small technical college. And you know where they're getting a new building? At this gutted-out shopping center that was used for the TV show The Walking Dead, which films in the next town over.
I mean, we have right now enough grip and lighting and camera equipment to actually shoot a legitimate, short feature film. We have everything we need.
This school is in the small town of Griffin, near Atlanta, and the program will be expanding.
As we get more projects coming in, there's certainly more awareness of the film industry and what it can do for the state as well as us here locally.
Scott McQuaid is with the Chamber of Commerce in Glynn County. He says schools in southeast Georgia are taking notice.
Our local college, the College of Coastal Georgia, has recently started to look at that.
It's not hard to see the need. Just look at Brunswick, where dozens of crew members spent the past few months building up a replica of Tampa's Ybor City from decades ago. Then tearing it down when Affleck and crew wrapped up filming last week.
I think Georgia has stolen a good part of Hollywood recently, and certainly it looks to be gaining steam.
So people wanting to get into the movie industry. Did you have any idea that you would be able to get into the film?
No idea.
Don't have to head to Southern California anymore. Justin Merritt grew up in Georgia and just started at the Academy.
I know that going to New York and going to California would be more challenging because there's a lot of people out there that I know that are trying to get into the industry and they're waiting tables.
But training all these people to work on crews like the ones you see in these closing credits is not the only concern for the state of Georgia. One concern I've heard is this workforce could be erased in the state. There's a concern this industry has a temporary infrastructure, and if, say, somewhere like Florida becomes more desirable, it could be lured away from Georgia. When I talked with the crew cleaning up the Affleck movie set, they mocked Florida, saying they can't go south to the Sunshine State because they don't have the tax breaks.
I am not exactly sure how they wound up in Griffin.
Georgia also has something else unique. Camera-ready cities like the town of Griffin. Lacey Barnes' office sat right across the street from where the TV show The Walking Dead spent a lot of time shooting.
They filmed on Highway 20 up here. We have a bridge right over here that they filmed on. They had a crane out there and had a zombie hanging off the crane, so that was really fun to watch.
These towns like Griffin and Brunswick are getting used to celebrities in their midst, which is one other selling point for the Peach State. What do the Hollywood people think of the Georgia locals?
There's definitely a local flavor that they get from the area, from everything from the food to the people to the warmth and the southern hospitality that the region offers.
So if you're from Jacksonville or Southeast Georgia and want some information on getting into the film industry, we put a link to some of the sites to point you in the right direction at news4jax.com. Just look under top stories. Scott Johnson, Channel 4, the local station.